Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mondays with Maishi. This is Moshe Norman, your host out of Lakewood, New Jersey, with tonight's featured guest, Lisa Schwartz, who is a psychologist out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with lots of horses, I just learned. And so I will be bringing my sons, lots of them, and my daughter out to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania when the weather permits. We will be in touch. Lisa, like it or not, here we come. Not ready
That'd be
or not.
great.
Okay.
You're more
Yeah,
than
you're,
welcome.
you're in the spirit. I see you're in the spirit of it. You can
Yep.
handle my voice.
Yep.
Okay. So tonight's discussion is on a model of trauma treatment and other psychotherapeutic treatment that was developed by Dr. Lisa Schwartz called Comprehensive Resource Model, also known as CRM, because after all, what's an intervention without an acronym,
That's
right?
right.
Without at
That's right.
least three letters. Effort two is not catchy enough, and five is too many. But somewhere between three and four, we can make a diagnosis or an intervention. So thank you, first of all, Lisa, for agreeing to come on and participate and share this information with us.
Oh, I really appreciate being invited. It's really
Okay,
an honor.
we hope to
Thanks.
learn something tonight.
Yeah.
I do want to share with everybody just before we get started that, of course, tonight we are sponsored as always by our two sponsors. That's OKclarity.com, which is a website where you can host your own website and feature yourself and your practice and showcase and display everything that it is that you do, whether it is your therapy practice or any wellness practice that you have, or workshops, trainings, or anything else that you do. It is the only website that caters to specifically or exclusively to the Jewish community. And you can put yourself on there, whether you're a Jewish clinician or not a Jewish clinician, but it's a place where many Jewish, Orthodox Jewish people go, okclarity.com, and you can feature yourself and do the work that we clinicians hate doing, which is marketing and publicizing ourselves. We're too humble for that. So go to okclarity.com and they will do it for you. Shout out to Aaron Herzog, who's on, who finds us so many of our experts to come on the show. Thank you, Aaron. And we're also sponsored by Office Streamline. That's officestreamline.com. Office Stream is a virtual secretary service so that you can focus on doing what it is that you like best, which is clinical work. Save you the time of answering phone calls and all the secretary work that you need. You can reach out to Office Streamline, check out their website, officestreamline.com, and hire a monthly virtual secretary. I have heard such rave reviews from people who use them. I'm just telling you that's not part of the ad, but it's the truth. It's the truth. So feel free. Okay. Another trauma modality. Lisa, this is going to be a tough sell. Okay. Tell us who you are. How, you know, what's your degree in? I know you said you're a psychologist. How did you come across sort of this idea and develop it into a model? You're going to have to sell us how this is different or better or unique from all the other trauma treatments that are out there.
Yeah, that's the issue. Um, so anyway, my name is Lisa Schwarz. I am a licensed psychologist. I did want to say though, just for accuracy, that I was I was grandfathered in to take the PhD boards way back in the day when if you had a master's degree and you could pass the PhD boards, you would be a psychologist. So I'm actually not a doctor, but I am truly a licensed psychologist. So I just wanted to state that for transparency. Um, just to keep it short and sweet, there were a couple things that were happening in my life. One was I was feeling as a therapist that there was something missing. Um, I actually felt like a pretty mediocre practitioner. I was like, what am I really doing? It just kind of felt like there was something missing from my time with my clients and really the work that was being done, which was unsettling. And I just also I worked in a community mental health center with a lot of really severe complex PTSD clients, severe dissociation, and I just felt like that was I it just was so difficult to do. I couldn't get the work to stick. I'm sure all of you have worked with clients such as this, and it's just very challenging. And I couldn't get a foothold. It was just really hard to get anything done. So, I'm thinking, well, it must be me. But there has to be another way. And so I kind of just set my intention. I mean, it was just like a deep, heartfelt intention that somewhere along my life I would find or figure out a different way. So that intention was specific, but the process of how the model developed has been pretty organic. The other thing that was going on at the time was I was recovering from a really severe drug addiction and I mean like long term, like living on the streets kind of drug addiction. And so I had a lot of trauma myself and traumatized my family as well, obviously. And so in the process of trying to get treatment for myself and my family, I was running into the same thing as what I was feeling as a therapist, which is people aren't getting it. There's something missing here. And the treatment itself was extremely traumatizing for myself, my family, and it wasn't working. So that was kind of a reinforcement for me, even on an unconscious level, that I had to do something. I had to figure something else out.
Yeah.
So basically, I ended up seeing, kind of traveling around the world and meeting different indigenous healers who worked with me to heal me. I mean, I had a ton of trauma, and I took my son with me, and I learned a lot. That was over, several years. And so I was incorporating what I was learning from that work, the indigenous work, into the more mainstream psychotherapy models,
Mm.
so the attachment models and the psychodynamic models and the parts work models, things like that. So it all just kind of organically came together. In 2006 is when I started teaching this. It was originally taught under a different name. Um, and then over the years, it's just kind of really developed into what it is today. And it's like a living thing, kind of. It just keeps developing into more and more breadth and depth. And that's what happened. That's why how it came to be.
That's
And
incredible. So you kind of used your own experience to bring it out and bring it up and allow it to flourish.
yeah,
Amazing.
exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Well, good for you that you took your adversity and channeled it into something productive.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with like the lemons and a lemonade thing. So,
That's a cinch compared to
yeah,
what you went through. Lemons and lemonade ain't nothing, right?
right.
Okay. Lisa, I'd like to do something that I don't usually do. I don't know if I've ever done before, but I want to take a minute or two to read the extensive explanation of CRM on the website, the comprehensive resource model.com website. And then we're going to try to sort of break it down and make some sense of it. Okay.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So here it reads, the comprehensive resource model is a neurobiologically based affect focused trauma treatment model, which facilitates targeting of traumatic experiences by bridging the most primitive aspects of the person and their brain to their purest, healthiest parts of the self. This bridge catalyzes the mind and body to access all forms of emotional trauma and stress by utilizing layers of internal resources such as attachment neurobiology, beneficial affiliation neurochemistry, breathwork skills, brain neuroplasticity, our deep connection to the natural world for survival, toning and sacred geometry, and one's relationship with self, our intuition and higher consciousness. The sequencing and combination of these resources and the eye positions that anchor them provide the opportunity for unbearable emotions of pain to be stepped into and felt fully while the client is fully present and aware moment to moment, which changes how the memories affect the person. So I'm going to stop. That's the first paragraph. Okay, can you help us
Yeah.
break down, maybe even piece by piece, when you talk about affect focused, neurobiology based, um, what do you mean when you say it's focused on affect? Are we
Okay.
focusing?
Yes.
Go
It's
ahead.
yeah, good question. So it's the one of the parts of the theory or the hypothesis of the modality is that intolerable emotions, affects, emotions that are unbearable, intolerable. I mean, literally the kind that shreds a person's psyche and breaks their heart and just like dismantles seems like it dismantles one's soul. Like that level of pain um, is what is needed to be the memory of those events that include those excruciating emotions need to be, they're in a memory circuit the way they are now. And what we believe is that those emotional memories need to be reconsolidated into a different learning pattern.
Hmm.
So when I say it's an affect-based model, we're resourcing the nervous system with all these levels, the scaffold of resourcing, which I can talk about in a minute, but many, many, many different resources at one time that creates the brain and body based safety neurochemically and neurobiology in terms of neurobiology and neurochemistry, relationally, spiritually, attachment wise, so that a person is able to, like literally, their nervous system will allow them to get to those emotions that have been completely out of reach, like all our lives. We spend all our lives, in fact, trying not to feel them or not to know
Hmm.
they're there.
Hmm.
So this model allows that to be done in a way that does not re-traumatize the client. It does not create abreaction. It does not create in between session, activation and problems. It does not create more dissociation. So it's
Hmm.
very, very safe, but allows you to get to the point like, of what's creating the need for the symptoms, rather than working kind of with the symptoms. We see the symptoms as just, they're just a defense response manifestation of the need to avoid these things, these
Hmm.
emotions.
So I just want to make sure if I understand what you're saying correctly. You're talking about implicit memory, not necessarily explicit memory where or explicit memories, but like you said, a neural network of just implicit memory.
Mhm.
Um, and the implicit memory is so overwhelming that the person won't even go there. They won't allow themselves to go there. They bury them down, suppress them,
Mhm.
and somehow allow them to just manifest in other ways, such as somatic symptoms, behavioral problems, and things like that, rather than facing them and dealing with them because they're so activating and overwhelming. And what I think I'm hearing you say is that the model is predicated on the idea that if we can keep the nervous system regulated and calm enough, then we can reactivate those implicit memories in a safe enough, uh, unactivated fashion that allows for a reprocessing of those experiences.
Yes, I mean that's basically it. It's reconsolidating the emotional
Mhm.
learning.
Mhm.
So it because the theory is if we are holding material memories, experiences, truths of our life, and these like intolerable affects, these
Mhm.
emotions that are intolerable, that our neurobiological hypothesis is that that fact, that that's the way we hold trauma, creates different looping systems in our neurobiology that lead to all of the symptoms that would be the diagnostic symptoms, the medical stuff, the somatic stuff, blah, blah, blah. And if you're able to step into and orient toward and really feel fully at its full depth, not just like
Mhm.
crying or feeling a feeling, but like
Mhm.
deep down in there to the root of it all, the tip of the hair of the root of it,
Mhm.
that it allows for the brain to, it's like an emotional reconsolidation thing where the brain can, like, it's not like used to that. It's not used to being able to step into at that depth to the truth of what really happened in the emotions. And when the brain and body feel safe enough to do that, it dismantles the memory loop in the
Mhm.
way that it's held around those emotions, mostly terror,
Mhm.
mostly survival terror, I believe is at the root of everything.
Mhm.
And that is also at the root of all of the attachment issues. So this is a really heavy attachment model. It's
Hmm.
about attachment and separation, not just from parents, but from many different aspects and levels of experience,
Existence,
of
right? Right.
existence and consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
it
So
isn't
I
just
just want just I'm sorry, I just want
okay.
to clarify one piece here. Are you saying that if there's a way that we can access that memory loop, or I forget if that's the word you used, if there's a way to access that without the terror or the acute affect, then that can be reconsolidated?
Mhm. It
Aha.
is
So
reconsolidated. Yep.
the trick really is to get, so to say, the traumatic experience without feeling the affect that comes along with it. And
You
you'll do
feel
that through resourcing.
people feel the affect, and it's not like it's all really warm and fuzzy and super
Mhm.
comfortable, but it is manageable, and most importantly on a neurobiological, chemical, just spirit, even just the soul level, you don't feel like you're being re-traumatized.
Mm.
Like it's difficult, but it's not re-traumatizing people. um
It doesn't leave the window of tolerance or go near there. It stays
well,
within.
actually, that's one of the really cool things about the model is we're not working in the window of tolerance per se. We are constantly expanding the window of tolerance,
Mhm,
like moment to moment, second to
mhm,
second, across the session, between
mhm,
sessions. So there, we don't see it as a static window of tolerance in a particular client.
mhm.
And in fact, the way the model works is that we're able to keep expanding that window of tolerance within the processing itself, as well as across time.
Well,
So it's really fluid.
I guess as the system regulates and re-regulates itself, the window of tolerance expands. But what I'm hearing you say is that you're not putting somebody into a state that's too
No,
overwhelming for them to be able to reconsolidate, to what they
no,
call activate and disconfirm some of the old things.
exactly,
Okay. So
exactly.
so again, the way I'm understanding this is that we want to get a person into a state of where they have enough resourcing going on or something to that effect, or to that effect. Just kidding. Right, something to that effect where they can now delve into their visceral experience. Okay.
Mhm.
I just want to remind everybody, for those of you who have questions or comments, which we always love hearing, please click the React tab on the bottom of the screen and raise your hand, and we shall call on you. I'll take care of that. So I guess what we have to really understand is what is it that you do to enable these networks of resourcing, or as you call them, scaffolding, which I'm
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm seeing, like sort of layers or scaffolds of
Mhm.
resourcing or resources that a person can access wherever they're going.
Exactly.
Tell us
So,
about that. What is that?
so if you think about the Russian dolls, the Matryoshka dolls, we actually started out like using that metaphor when I started teaching it, because that's basically what it is. There's seven primary internally access. These are internal resources. We don't use the therapist as the corrective experience in terms of attachment. I mean, I guess it would happen, or it happens organically, but it's not about like, what are the external things out in the world that we need to remember and like hold dear? Which is, those things are fine. But in this model, we're finding what's in here that has been forgotten, how to use our, just our, what we already have, the gifts that we have inside, like breath. So each doll, there's all these, I'll name them all that we use, and then there's secondary ones as well that we weave through. But like the biggest outside doll, the big doll that holds everything would be attunement. And that's attunement between the therapist and themselves. We're big on the therapist doing their own work. And So that would be, and then between the therapist and the client, obviously, and then also the work itself kind of necessitates a client to become more attuned to themselves and their parts and their consciousness. So you have this big doll of attunement that like holds this whole thing. Then the second doll in would be there's at least 12 different pieces of breath work that I've created, and some of it is a mishmash from other breath workers mixed with other stuff. I've permission to use everything that I've like borrowed, I guess, or used in the breath work piece. But there's 12 different kinds of breath work. Some of it is for processing, some of it is for grounding, some of it is for releasing. Every single breath work does a different thing. So the attunement doll allows the therapist to decide, and for the client even to decide, what breath work do I need in the moment, depending on where I am in the process. Then the next doll in is what we call sacred place, but that's not in a religious sense. It's more just that reverence, that awe-inspiring experience of remembering our connection to the land, to our ancestors, to nature, to the ancient DNA in us, where our survival depended on our relationship with the land. And that is important because of how powerful the frequency is of those resources, benevolent ancestors, deep connection to nature. I mean, it's an inextricable, our relationship to nature, although you wouldn't know it these days, but it is. And we can activate that by the way we language it and the way that resources created. So we're accessing the this is the neurochemistry of affiliation gets activated in that resource. So you're starting different resourcing loops with a release of different chemicals that are extremely resourcing in terms of being able to stay present with the material. Then the next Russian doll in is, and you use the breath work in the sacred place work. So like all the dolls inform and build on each other. So all of these things are running at the same time. We're not going back and forth, like feel the resource and now feel the trauma. Feel the resource and now feel the trauma. It's not like that. Everything is happening at once. It's really cool. And then the next doll in then would be finding the somatic resources internally. This is where we are able to feel grounded, centered, solid, present, where we're able to feel the light inside us, where we're able to feel various resources in a somatic way, and we connect them all, like connect the dots inside. We also use eye positions to anchor every single one of these resources. So it would be a fixed eye position, not eye movements. And each resource, when you put a eye position that anchors it, it strengthens the ability for the person to orient toward what we're trying to get to. That's the eye position is the anchor. It's similar to brain spotting in that way, but we're anchoring resources mostly, at least in the basic training. So then the next one after the internal body, the somatic grids, the energy grids, the resource grids, is we activate secure attachment neurobiology and neurochemistry that's been dormant. So we're able to, through the way the process works, is to allow a remembering, not a cognitive remembering, but like a full body, all of us remembering of what secure attachment is, even if you've never had it, because
I was going to ask, how is that possible?
we're bo-
How is it possible to?
well, because number one, we're all born with the template that makes secure attachment possible. It doesn't matter if you never had it, it's dormant and asleep in there, the template for it. So when we use the languaging that we use, the breath work that we use, the internally activated resourcing of certain aspects of ourself, certain aspects of the natural world, certain aspects of our spiritual belief system. There's no religion around this, by the way. It's non-denominational. Um, but it allows you to, and we activate, it's literally an activation of the attunement behaviors that babies needed when they were born that they didn't get. The brain does not know the difference. The brain doesn't know the difference whether you're making eye contact with a tiger or a tree or, you know, a sacred being or spiritual resource. It doesn't know the difference. It's just like, here it is. We're getting all of these experiences through eye contact, physical contact, not with the therapist. This is all internal. Um, the sound and frequency, the vibration of sound of the voice, forehead to forehead touch, which is what babies really need and respond to. Synchronized breathing, synchronized heartbeat with these attachment figures. And the attachment system just wakes up. Even if a person has never, ever, ever had it, it wakes up. It does bring some terror with it. And that's one of the really amazing things about CRM is we are directly addressing obstacles and blocks to therapy, to the work, to resourcing, because resourcing is scary when you've lived your whole life on the edge and just not really trusting anything. And you've never really experienced, or if you did experience attachment, or you learned and you yearned for it, longed for it, waited for it, prayed for it, hoping, longing, waiting, praying, and you rarely got any kind of attachment. But if you did, it came with a price. It came with some kind of punishment or some kind of neglect or some kind of something that went with it that made attachment not desirable. This allows you to not only activate the secure neurobiology of it, but also work through all those like scary triggers to attachment at the same time. It does it all at once. So you're actually creating the resourcing in a really robust way that is needed just because we need it. We need it to be healthy, to thrive, to feel joyful, to feel connection. And so we're creating that kind of attachment resourcing for just that purpose, to wake it up and to make it available for us to like step into and cultivate,
Hmm.
over time. But it also provides exactly what is needed neurobiologically to allow a person to process the trauma of not having had it in the first place. So we're developing all these resources that are allowing us to step into the lack of having had these
Hmm.
resources.
So,
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 yeah.
and I'm just curious when you talk about these resources that you are, I guess, attuning them to, because you're not talking about external resources. You're talking about finding the resources within.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much time is expended? I mean, does that mean that you spend a lot of time bringing them in, focusing inward and bringing them inward to access those resources and develop them?
Well, I mean, time is relative because number one, it depends on the client. Some clients just take it to it like a duck to water and there isn't a lot of fear around it. Then yeah, it happens like that. For other people, the terror of the work itself, the terror of this level of work, the terror of the truth of their life, the terror around actually making a change and actually healing. Everybody says, of course, you go to your therapist, you say, I want to heal. That's like this much of a person that's saying that. The
Hmm.
rest of them the person's back in here in their brain is going,
Hmm.
no, we don't. We don't want
Hmm.
to do any of that. And so, so you run into these situations where you're like, because you're actually working. I think my work is more working with the blocks and obstacles to healing than actually healing the trauma. The trauma work goes really quick once you can get past those fears that people have and the just the willingness for a person to step into their own free will too, their own choice to
Hmm.
take responsibility for what can be done on within themselves.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, do you actually focus on each one of these particular
Yeah.
skills and resources
Yep.
and cultivate them and develop them? Is that what's
Yes.
happening? Okay.
Absolutely.
So now within me, let's just say, I mean, I think I only wrote down six in the chat. I don't know if I got them all, if I got the right ones. Is that right? Attunement, breathwork, sacred place, internal somatic resources, fixed eye positions, secure attachment. Was there another one or?
Well, there's kind of our higher self, like the what we call the CRM core self, which is not it's not an ego state. It's not like a part. In fact, it's the purest essence of who we are that we've also forgotten and been
Okay.
completely cut off from. It's like our self that is the unconditional love that is everlasting, the non-intentional just frequency and vibration of love and grace and mercy and just the beingness of whatever is divine for the person. Just that level, it's not a part. It's just the state of our essence that is of the highest frequency. And
Okay. So now you've helped me cultivate these um, resources
Mhm.
inside myself. What happens to them? Do they sort of swim around and stick with me? And then when I process when talk about the trauma, I'm going to be choosing which ones to access or grabbing out. You know, what happens?
it,
How do we
yeah,
sort of juxtapose the resources with the discussion of trauma?
of the trauma. So yeah, it's again a perfectly excellent question. It's the eye positions that allow the crocheting of the scaffold to stay in one place. Because if you were to start out doing breath work, which doesn't have an eye position with it really, but it's just a bunch of breath work, and then I create or help you develop your sacred place, which is internal. It's inside us as well as something outside us. The internal reflects the external. There is no such thing as a separation in this model between what's in here and what's out here. So, say we create this resource or develop this resource of this connection to the land, to ancestors, to nature. We would find an eye position where you feel that the strongest, and from that eye position, staying on that eye position, we move on to the next resource and create that resource from the eye position before it. So all of the neurobiology is being woven together because the eye position from the resource before, I know this is hard to like follow, but
Hmm.
it's like the eye position before it is is in place. It's holding sacred place in place. So then while you're on that and you build an internal body resource grid, the body resource grid eye position holds both the body resource grid and sacred place because of the way it was developed on the previous eye position. So it's like a topographical map in the brain is being developed and mapped out, and the eye positions anchor that, anchor that, anchor that, anchor that. So by the time you get to the attachment resources, which is what we normally work the trauma from, you now have 4 or 5 or 6 different resources that were woven in, crocheted in to the scaffold of the development of it all by the time you get to the attachment resource. Um,
Okay. Is there anyone who's on the call who is familiar with CRM? By the way, Lisa, can you share some of your resources and trainings that are coming up? I know
well,
I know you mentioned before the show this one with Nachas Consulting, but we don't have a date yet. Is that
okay.
right?
So first of all, let me say, like Moshe had asked me to do like a demo with you all, or like to show you some of it, and so you could
Mhm.
take something home with you. And I would love to do that. I have no problem. I mean, there's no reason why I wouldn't do that other than it's it wouldn't really represent anything in term because the model is so it's a fractal of all these different repetitive patterns of resource. And if I just cut some out for a few minutes to show you something, it won't do anything for you. Like the way this works is because everything is stacked and nested and woven together, and that takes longer than like 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So I just want to say, like, I'm sorry. I understand in these presentations in particular the desire for that and to want to see it. Like, I get it, but that's not what this is. Like, I can't show you a protocol in that way in this time frame. So the good news is on my website, there is a clicky box on the homepage that says, you know, watch a CRM demonstration with a complex PTSD client. If you click on that, there's this really good, very clear demonstration that you can watch. And the woman I've never met her before I did this work, ever, before I did this thing with her. And she did an interview, just a few minutes. She talked before I worked with her, then it recorded the whole session. And then it was another interview with her after the work, so that you can hear from someone who didn't even know what it was, what it's like to experience being in it, as well as a really good example of what it looks like. So in lieu of me being able to really do something that would be helpful for you today, which really it wouldn't, I swear it would not help you at all to see what I could show you. You can see it on the website if you're interested.
And which
I just
website is
wanted to
that?
say that. In terms of the trainings that are coming up,
Well, which website is the one
oh, it's
that has that?
www.comprehensiveresourcemodel.com. So it's all lowercase and all exactly as it sounds. Comprehensiveresourcemodel.com. There's a lot on there. Like the website is probably way too busy. I need to redo my website. But there's a ton of stuff. There's podcasts, there's testimonials, there's different pages with different kinds of, articles and supporting articles and information. And we also have webinars that you can stream. Some of the trainings are streamed, but not the foundations training, not the first one.
Okay.
That's one that I used to always teach in person. I traveled all around the world all the time, but 20 years of that was enough. And the pandemic showed me that you can do this online. So I'm like, yeah, I'm staying home. I'm doing that
Mm.
online. So that's been it's been really helpful. It's made it, I don't know, it's been good. So I have a training like that, the foundations training, which a person does have to take, not stream. Um, I'm setting one up for your community in the days and the hours that are good for you, just given your I don't know, your work schedule, you know. So and it's going to be for your group, your community. And so that will be, I'm working on that right now to find out when my assistants can do that. And so it's going to be like probably June, maybe June, um, or the beginning of September. June, July, maybe the beginning of September before your holidays, and not in August because people don't work then a lot. But there is one coming up. The way it works is I used to teach this in 5 days straight, but people were overwhelmed by the amount of information. It's very dense. It's like a really advanced, sophisticated kind of way of doing things, but it's effective. It's beyond anything else that's out there. It is. And it works and it's sick. And I'm going to say that because it's true. But anyway, it's a lot, but in order to get there to like really, be able to practice with a fair level of confidence, you do have to wade through quite a bit of information, and people were complaining that it was too much in 5 days. So I've broken it down into 2.5 day trainings. So it's 5 days, but it's, 2.5 days. I'd really like it to be 3 days and 3 days, but then we have the CE company problem, where I had to go through hoops to get whatever it is, 37 CEs for the training, but that's only based on 5 days. So if I add a day, I have to go through this whole rigmarole again, which I'm like, no, I can't bear to do it. And I don't have time right now. So there are CEs for the foundational training for all the, counselors, MFTs, LPCs, psychologists, social workers. But it is going to be done in the 2.5 day format with probably no more than 3 weeks between the two parts. And in between those two parts, you're going to get 4 different webinars, 2 other demonstrations, a free study group in between the parts, and to help facilitate the learning and to be able to have kind of connective tissue between the first part and the second part, so you don't lose the train of it, the train of thought of it.
So that this can all be found on the website. Yes.
Not yet, it isn't, because
Okay.
I haven't scheduled it yet.
Okay, but it will be available on the website, and I'm sure many of you are connected with Nachas Consulting, so you'll get the email.
Right.
Um, Lisa, can you talk to, first of all, again, I just want to ask, is there anybody here who can raise their hand who is familiar with CRM, who's either practiced it or had a practice on them? If you could raise your hand, I'd be curious to hear your experience. Um, Lisa, can you talk a little bit about the term mismatch that comes up in the model? What do you refer to when you talk about a mismatch of experience?
So this is the mechanism of change. This is how it works. So the mismatch is where the trauma is activated, meaning we're asking the person to think about it, to remember it, to talk about it, to feel it, feel what happens in their body when they think about it or remember it or talk about it. And this is even, again, this modality will work on things that people aren't consciously remembering or aware of because it goes down like this. So they may be remembering a trauma and talking about it and stepping into it and letting it be there on this level, but once the process starts going, it goes down to other aspects and elements of what people aren't even aware is there. And it's there. So the mismatch is we're activating the trauma in whatever way people can bring it up, bring it into their awareness in the moment. And so those trauma loops, it's like a double Dutch jump rope. When we were little and we would jump rope with two jump ropes. I don't know if you guys are old enough. I'm like all old, so we used to play like that, like actually play. But anyway, two jump ropes like this, right? One of the jump ropes, you just picture it as one of the jump ropes is all of the trauma material, the trauma neural circuitry, the trauma defense loops, the fight, flight, freeze, all of the different layers of the brain holding the trauma stuff. And that's one of the jump ropes. The other jump rope is all of the corresponding neural circuitry, neurobiology, neurochemistry that is created from the resourcing. So from all the different breath work, all the different, sacred place development, the somatic resourcing, the ancestral resourcing, the attachment, the secure attachment development, all of those things are also now, they're the other jump rope. So you have both jump ropes happening at one time, and it's a mismatch because you have a trauma loop that's holding all this icky stuff, and even stuff you're not even aware of. And then you have this other simultaneously juxtaposed experience of neurobiology and neurochemistry of these gazillion resources that we've like crocheted together. So the mismatch is experiencing the trauma and the resourcing literally simultaneously. So it's not phase-based.
Hmm.
And it's that juxtaposition, that mismatch of the experience at the same time that throws the learning system off, and the brain goes, wait, this doesn't feel like how it normally
So,
feels when
so in
we
other words, if like
think.
memories are supposed to activate triggers, right? Memories, negative memories,
Mhm.
traumatic memories are supposed to be activating neurological upset, if you may, or somatic upset, right?
Right,
Or
or a
or
warning
rage,
system
or
or something. Yeah.
emotional, right? Rage, and at the same time, the body is so resourced that it feels regulated. Again, back to what we were describing earlier on, then that creates a mismatch, and the system has to reboot itself.
Yes,
Is that what's
that's
happening?
that's a good way of putting it. That, yeah.
Very cool. I
Mhm.
think I'm getting the idea without the details of how how do you create all that resourcing. Obviously, must be a build up and a development, and then the scaffolding piece
Right.
of and also how where and how do you bring up the traumatic memories
There,
or
it can happen. Just somebody walks in the door and it's just right there, and they're talking about it. So bring it, you can bring it up by just asking a client what they want to work on or
Mhm.
whatever they come in the room with, and you're just saying like, oh, just curious, like what's going on. I mean, just it's kind of regular
No, no, give
psychotherapy.
us give us more of that, give us more of that. So the client, let's say, starts to talk about a traumatic, let's keep this, in its simplest form. They
Mhm.
talk about a traumatic incident, severely traumatic incident that happened to them.
Mhm. Okay.
And now,
So
and now, where's the resourcing? Tell me what's going on. Is their body so steeped right now in resourcing that as they speak about it, there's something healing or appearing that's
here,
not
okay.
reparative?
So there's two ways to answer this question. One is we don't just start working on somebody's trauma.
Hmm.
Like that doesn't that is not how this works. We've already talked to people about, we've done psychoeducation around the model. We've done mapping, meaning an identification of the internal landscape of a person so that we can see what parts of a person are going to try to stop this process. What parts of a person are actually really afraid of going into the traumatic material? What aspects of a person are going to block the traumatic material from even being able to be accessed in a helpful way? So there's all this prep work that's done way before somebody just comes in and says, I had this horrible traumatic experience, and then we just start doing resourcing. So there's a lot of preparation first, because in my belief system, if you just have a person come in, sit down, they tell you the trauma, and you just start to do it, it's not going to work, because people's deepest truth is being protected by extremely powerful internal levels of our consciousness that is going to make sure that it isn't doable to do. And I'm trained in a lot of trauma modalities, and that's what I found was a problem, was just this jumping into things without doing any kind of exploratory work around what's in there that is going to either support this process or try to shut it down. And that's regardless of diagnosis. That has nothing to do with actually somebody's
Defense
diagnosis.
mechanisms and defense mechanisms are going to play out
Yes. And
throughout.
so, yes. And so we address that all first. And that can take sessions, because there's a lot of fear around going where this will go. So, and people know that their brain already knows it just by hearing the psychoeducation on it. The human brain is going, oh shit, that's what this is. Yeah, we're not doing this. And so it is that level of immediate, like, this is not easy. We can't get over on this. So it does. It creates a lot of defense responses. So, you know, so that's there. We do that kind of stuff before we actually do the trauma work. The other thing is we have to develop each resource first,
Yes.
because you can't just sit down and go, oh, we're going to just put all these 7 things together that you've never even heard of. So the breath work, each there's different ways that we teach and also get a diagnostic landscape, a diagnostic picture of how embodied is this person, how much are they able to stay in their body, how dissociated are they from their embodied, their ability to embody. Because that's another thing about this is, we believe if you are not fully present in the moment with what's going on in the therapy, it is not going to stick. It's just going to be a big bypass and feel really good in the moment, feel really good for a few days or a week, and then boom, you're right back to where you started. So we're also assessing for the ability and the capacity to stay in the body during the work. And that is done by virtue of guiding people to learn the different resources, because we can tell as therapists, can they do this? And if they can't do the resources, it is indicating an issue around being connected to self.
Hmm.
So if you go through all that, though, and you're like, okay, now what do we do? Now I can answer the question, which is, by this time, we know what the traumas are. It's all the same. Every human has the exact same trauma. They weren't loved right. That's the trauma. I wasn't loved right. And so I'm separated from myself, from God, from my parents, from the land, from reality, from my body, from everything. Because to me, we all have the same thing, just not loved right and not feeling worthy of love. So anyway, whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter, because you can work in whatever way you want to. But
Mhm.
just say we're working on, by this time, everything I said, we're taught, somebody says, I have this horrible trauma, and my mother poured a bowl of spaghetti on my head when I was in the crib. Okay. So we're going to have them. And I know this because they brought it up before, or it came up in the resourcing development or whatever. Or they said, this keeps coming up in a nightmare, having a bowl of spaghetti poured on my head. So what we do is we just will use the resources. They'll bring that up. It's like, okay, so that's what we're going to work on. So we have them start doing different breath work right away. It's just like, okay, just bring that up. As you're thinking about it, start doing XYZ breath. And then we have them do the grounding, embodied, different breath, and the sacred place development, the special place, the nature connection development, which is basically the neurochemistry of affiliation, which allows people to step into and affiliate with the material and themselves and this resource that is the earth, which is really high frequency. And then from there, you have the person go back to the trigger and have them bring it back up again and ask, when you think about the spaghetti incident, where do you feel it in your body? What is your SUDS level? We do use the SUDS level. So 0 to 10, subjective units of distress. 0 is none, 10 is the most. How activating is it? Where is it in the body? And then once we have that, we again bring in different breath, and then we start to do the somatic grids, the resource grids, which are what keeps a person in their body in the context of now the trauma is activated. So the trauma is activated, but the grid loops are now running on top of it, juxtaposed on it. And from there, we invite, some people work with parts. So do, ego state work. Some therapists just work as a whole with a person. Either way, if you're doing the parts work, you bring the part forward, you do attachment resourcing with them, meaning, again, this accessing of the internal attachment figures that people hold in a level of, I don't want to say trust, because I don't really trust them all the time, but it's a capacity to access something that will bring in, these attunement behaviors and at least the willingness to try. So you have your, say 2 or 3 different resources. The trauma itself is reactivated from when you initially talked about it. You bring it back up, you find it in the body, you build another couple of resources. The original resources are still running. Then you got your second kind of level of them that are still running. Now they're all running together. And now you're going deeper into the remembering of the trauma just by virtue of breath into body sensation, allowing these narratives to come up. It's a lot of the languaging that we use is very specific languaging that gets the brain to go down in. So do you have a question?
Let's take a few questions. Yeah, we have a few
Yeah.
questions. Aaron, you want to ask something? Go
Yes, and
ahead.
I'm a little bit confused. You mentioned something that you believe every trauma is survival error. Could you a little bit explain it?
Survivor terror, yes.
Terror, and also you also mentioned that we were not loved right. So it's a little bit confusing. It's either survival terror or not loved
Well,
right. Could you explain it?
yeah. So it's like not being loved right. I mean, that's a simplistic way of saying it, but it is the experience that anybody I've worked with for 40 years has had that experience on some level. If you break down what their symptoms are and go all the way back, it does go back, at least in my practice, to some element or experience of feeling like they need love to survive, but getting that love or trying to get that love actually has made them feel like it's not safe. So the survival terror aspect is, at least in this model, there's 5 belief systems that manifest, the survival terror belief systems that are created from attachment disruption, whether it's from parents or some other type of separation that a person experiences. Separation is the core of everything. Like, we're looking to be whole. So when there's any kind of separation, there is going to be some type of trauma and survival terror to it. And the survival terror manifestations in this model they manifest as either I'm going to die, I don't exist, I'm a failure as a human being, I am unloved and I'm not even human. And those are things that are created, at least in my experience, from trauma and in particular attachment trauma. So that's how they go together. And I'm not saying like that's the only work CRM does. I'm saying it's the conceptualization within which that we work is that concept. And it's bared out to be true. I mean, I'm 63. I've been doing this for 40 years. Literally this year, it's 40 years. And I haven't run into anybody where this isn't the case. So I could be wrong. Obviously, I could definitely be wrong, but this is how I see it. And that's how the model is designed, is to work on the survival terrors that are a result of all manner and level and type of attachment severing, whether it's with the self, with the intuition, with the body, with another, with the parents, with our history, with, whatever it is, there's some level of survival terror. So that's how the conceptualization is.
Okay, thank you. Cecil, you want to ask a question?
Yes, hi. Thank you so
Hi.
much. First of all, I thank you so much for all the information. I did look at the link before we got onto the Zoom because I wanted to understand a little bit more. I've never heard this before, and there was so much for the information over there that I was like, okay, I gotta wait for you to share it. Okay, so in my practice now, I feel like 99% of my clients definitely have some trauma associated in the past. Therefore, they're there, but they're saying, oh, I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm struggling with addiction. I was like, actually, today I had a client who's like struggling with a sex addiction. And I found out that he was bullied when he was younger. And that, like, I like the way you said this, like, spiraling thing where I feel like I just started at the tip and I hope to be able to get there, but I have no trauma experience, or meaning to say like I didn't train on anything. And I feel like I'm doing a disservice to my clients because I somehow feel like I can only reach like to one or two tiers. And maybe, I don't know if I'm wrong in that aspect, but I feel like as a therapist, we should have trauma work. We should know how to do trauma work because most of our clients do have either attachment issues or some sort of trauma experience.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know from the little bits and pieces that I pick up, and I'm assuming most therapists do as we do our research and trying to help our clients, is it good enough? Like a little bit of what I picked up from what you were saying, because I wrote down these couple of things that you shared, right? And some of it I do see that related to myself. Obviously, I don't know how to do breath work, but the in tune and the somatic piece and the sacred space, I didn't know about that fixed eye thing, right? The attachment. It's literally a tiny drop, but do you think that's a little bit enough, kind of? And how much of it am I actually helping my clients, or am I doing a disservice to them? And I do need to learn how to do it entirely.
I'm going to answer this from my heart, from the truth for you.
Go for
I
it.
don't think it frickin' matters what modality we use, even CRM. I honestly think it's the true love that we bring to the field in which we work. And that's enough.
Thank you. I appreciate that response because I keep on doubting myself. I'm like, we need to help them. And just talk sometimes is just not enough. It's just not enough. I'm like, okay, what else can we give them? Right. And I do want to ask just a practical question. How much would the course cost?
I don't know what he's going to charge. Like, if
Range,
say again.
range wise, like
Oh, I don't know
500,
because
1,000.
Nachas Consulting is going
Yeah,
to charge for the
they're
he's
course.
gonna do
doing
it.
it.
Cecil,
And he's like,
come with
you don't need to worry about that,
We're gonna
Lisa. We'll
wait.
come
take
with
care
us
of
to
it on this
Pittsburgh.
end. So I'm
Come
like,
with us to
okay.
Pittsburgh for a
And
private
so,
audience.
like,
Okay.
honestly, I don't know.
I'll tell you why I'm like so excited about it, because I like the fact that you brought out we're not triggering the clients like any major experiences. And that's why I haven't yet set on one thing. Okay, I got to work on this one. I want to learn how this works because this really talks to me. And I keep on like veering away from it. Not psychedelics, not EMDR. They're all amazing. They're all amazing. IFS. I'm just afraid to even hypnosis, which I really appreciate. But I I love the work that you just presented. It's just so beautiful. Thank you.
I'll tell you all what. If you want to do a free session so you can experience it even just a little bit, just email me. It's lisa@comprehensiveresourcemodel.com. And I'll do something with you that will not open you up too much and that will allow you to experience it in the way that it is
Wow.
possible. So
Thank
just
you.
email
Thank
me.
you.
I actually have
Thank
time
you.
right now. So if you wanted to do that, and anybody that's here, feel free. I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Because I
Thank you.
can't do the demo here. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, can you
Yes.
imagine me trying to show you what I just described? It's like
Mhm.
you can't.
And see if we can record it, if and then comfortable to share it afterwards. That would be amazing too. If
we could
if
do
it's too
that.
upsetting to show, then obviously not. But if it's safe enough to show, then we'd love to see it.
And I could also get someone who, like one of my trainers or something, who would be happy to do one. But Cecil, for you, like, please contact me. I would love to do that
Okay.
for you. And for
Again, if you
anybody
could
else that's
provide me
on
your
screen
contact
right now.
number, I would take it down.
Here, let me
Just
put it in the chat.
yeah, put it in the
Okay.
chat.
Can I put it in the chat?
Or
Can I
yeah,
access the
yeah,
chat?
just click on the chat. You should be able to do
Okay. Tech is like not my thing.
it. I can type it in if you want.
I'm old fashioned.
Okay, we're gonna take a question from Chaya.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Chaya. Let's see if Lisa can multitask.
So I also want to just say thank you. You shared very, very interesting information. I have a little bit of a technical question, just knowing clients. I know that they're always like, how long is this going to take? When will I start seeing relief?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it sounds even the fact that you can't do, a little demo here because there's so much that it includes. I'm just curious, like what you would say, when a client would start feeling something, relief, different, something.
Okay. Difficult question to answer, but here's the thing. There's different clients report like different types of improvement and relief. So say there's a therapist who they learn the model, but they only stick with just resource development. They actually never take a client like down in because the therapist is afraid, which is fine. That's just what it is. But even just helping clients to connect to themselves through the resourcing, they can report feeling better in several sessions. In terms of, just the co-consciousness work of mapping the internal landscape, which our work is different from IFS. Our parts, the way I conceptualize it, the way we work with parts is different from IFS. But clients have also reported, literally within 2 sessions, they'll say that just having a different clarity, a different connection to myself from like that part of CRM has brought a lot of clarity. It's decreased my anxiety. It makes me like not so freaked out because I understand what's going on. I know more about what's going on. So that can be within a few sessions. In terms of, the complex PTSD, it depends. It depends on what the deficit is in them that is like breaking their hearts, like without them even knowing, and that is just keeping them in that suppressed state of misery. That if, you can easily, and without even realizing it, just by virtue of doing a few interventions, a few of the initial resourcing interventions with maybe just a little tiny piece of like attachment sorrow. That it might not go all the way down to the tip and the hairs of the root, but it was enough. Something about it can be enough that people will report feeling better. Now, for other things, their whole system is wired into certain behaviors, certain symptoms, certain, really screwed in tight belief systems that they're bound and determined to hold on to. There's a lot of unconscious fears about actually changing and feeling free to make choices in your life, which is what is empowering and makes a person feel sovereign and brings them back to a connection to what is this? What can I live from this? That when you have had a lot of trauma in your childhood where that was not nourished, it wasn't even safe. Like you had to stick to the program of whatever had power over you at the time. That's suppressing the human soul. That's going to take a while to untangle. But it depends on the therapist. And it depends on, like I said, how is the therapist sitting energetically in the energetic envelope? Are they embodying true compassion? And I mean authentic love. No matter how much they might bumble with a model or bumble with the technology of a model or something. So there's a lot of answers to that question.
So if I'm understanding, you're kind of saying that each individual part of it can be helpful and healing within itself until you get to the deeper trauma work.
It can be. It can be.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
There's no like guarantee, but like it definitely can be.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or any last thoughts, Lisa, that you'd like to share with us? Anybody else?
I just, I've come to a place where I thought this was going to be the next EMDR. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so amazing. Really, it is. But over the years, that didn't, I guess I'm not the greatest businesswoman.
That's
but,
right. It's all marketing.
Like, I'm not a marketing machine. I don't have a marketing machine really behind me. It's like two girls and a guy in a recliner, like we run the business kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, but I really have, and I know it's part of my own teaching and my own thing in this life, which is to just appreciate and accept what I can do and how much I can get out there into the world, what this is, and be grateful for that. So it is a niche kind of model for sure, and not just because I don't have the marketing machine. It's special and it's amazing, and it's there's a mysticism to it as well for anybody who is, wants to access the mystical aspect of themselves or their work. Again, non-denominational. It's just the way it is. And so my desire is, like, I hope you'll check it out. I hope you'll come. This is not, I'm telling you, this is not reinventing the wheel. This is going to be very different from anything you've done. And I'm certainly have dedicated my life to it, and I haven't done that for nothing. Meaning, not talking financial, unfortunately, but like, I'm just talking about what this is. So I'm just inviting you to check it out. The model's very flexible. We provide a ton of support during and after the trainings, and I love the work. And I would say that if you were to take the chance and take the training, you'll get something from it, even if it's totally unexpected and something that you never, ever even thought would be what you'd get from a training. Like, it's like it's interesting. So I'm just really honored, and thank you very much for
Yes.
having me.
So thank you for participating and joining and sharing this beautiful model, wholesome, pure, beautiful model. Everybody do take a look at comprehensiveresourcemodel.com. You'll get a better idea. You'll get some better visuals. You get to watch that model session that's on there. Thank you, Lisa, for participating. And good night, everybody. Hope to see you next week.
Thank you. Good
Bye.
Thank you
night.
so much.